Hello everyone, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another Trinity Stamps video. Today we're going to be doing some spotlighting with a stencil, but let's talk about what we're using first. I have this Trinity Stamps Modern Embossed Window Panel number 1. We have this brand new Full Moon stencil. There is the matching die. We won't be using the die, but that stencil's gorgeous. We have our Simply Sentimental Halloween, the stamps and the dies. You guys know how I love those Simply Sentimentals. And then we're going to be bringing in this new Hocus Pocus Gnomes. I want to use this little wizard gnome. He's so cute. And we do have the matching dies to go along with that as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I've already die cut out the Modern Embossed window panel. I did use those Avery 6465. This is actually repositionable. So they're really, really great for masking. And it's a cheaper alternative, that's for sure. So I went ahead and die cut that out. I'm going to peel off part of that backing, and then I'm going to put this down on top of some mixed media paper. That measures 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And so this modern embossed panel covers the full bit of that, leaving the center out, of course, because I want to do a moon. So I've brought in some colors. I've got some Distress inks, and we've got our blending buddies, and I'm starting off with some scattered straw, just going to blend that all over in that circled area. And then this is where I want to do the spotlighting with the stencil. Now the stencil itself is huge as far as like making a very large moon. I didn't want that big a one, so I'm just going to pick what I want. I say spotlighting a stencil. I'm not sure if that's actually what it is, but I mean, we are focusing on just part of it. So that's, I guess, why I would say spotlighting it. I'm going to bring in my magnet platform and I'm going to stick that down using some magnets. That way it'll keep the stencil in place and it'll also keep the paper in place. And then I've brought in some iced spruce ink and the blending buddy that goes along with that. It's more of like a green gray. You'll notice I'm using my finger to hold that one piece down. It is a little bit finicky right there just because the part that it's connected to is so thin. So you can either use like a little bit of repositionable tape if you need to, or my finger worked fine for that part. And now I'm going to peel back the stencil and you can see the moon that we are left with. It looks really good. And if I hadn't ripped that masking paper, I could have saved it for something else. But I didn't, so I tore it. I'm trying to put down the circle and then I realize that ink is probably still a little bit wet and that's why it's not sticking. So I'm going to go ahead and heat dry that. And once I'm sure that that is good and dry, we will take our masked circle and put that right over the moon because I want this to be a fairly flat card, at least the background anyway. So you'll see that I have some Distress inks on the side. We are going to go from light to dark and we're going to start with some cracked pistachio. And so I brought in my green blending buddy and I'm just going around that circle, bringing in that cracked pistachio. It's going to be super light. You'll see it when everything's pulled away. I don't know what it is with this green combo for Halloween cards right now though. I'm loving it. It's really good and eerie. And then the next color I bring in is Evergreen Bough. And I'm starting on the edges and bringing that in. And I might get a little bit dark on those edges. That's okay. We're going to keep darkening up those edges. But I just want that to blend in to that cracked pistachio. And then once we're done blending that, I'm going to move on to that last green color, which is Pine Needles. So it's a nice deep green. And blending into those greens that we already have on there, it's a really pretty color. I think that looks so good together. And we're just going to kind of keep that mostly to the edges, of course. All right, love how that looks. I'm going to clean up my mess and then I'm going to bring in one more color. We're going to bring in the black soot because I do want those edges to be nice and deep. It'll frame up our piece really well. So I'll bring in my black blending buddy and then I am really sticking right to the edges. I don't want to go in too far. Maybe at the bottom a little bit more, but on the sides and the top, I really want that to stick to just the edges. Oh, that's good and eerie. Love it. All right, so now I'm going to peel back that mask and you'll see how cool this background looks. But we're going to make it look even cooler by using splatter, of course. So we're going to spatter some of this silver and some gold paint on that background. And I'm sure you have some of that in your stash. All right, so I'm spattering that all over that background. I'm going to show you how that looks. Oh, look at all that shimmery goodness when you hold it to the side. It's fabulous. We'll set that off to the side to dry, and then we'll work on our main piece, which of course is the little gnome wizard. He's so cute. Oh, he makes me think of like hobbits and the Shire, things of that nature. So he just makes me happy. So I'm going to kind of color him up to look a little bit more like one of those characters. And I'm going to put all those colors up on the screen. I did stamp him out using some blackout ink by Ink on 3, and I did do it onto some Express It cardstock. Those are my favorite combinations for alcohol marker coloring. And then I'm using just Olos this time. So his skin tone, we've got our little ORs, and then we'll bring in some yellows for the moon on his little hat, and even go a little bit darker there to be a little bit more dramatic. For the grays, I decided to use some red gray, and it's a little bit different kind of gray, really. I mean, you've got your cool grays and your warm grays, but this one has that undertone of reds to it. Still very gray, obviously, but I love that undertone of the red. And you can really see it when you put it next to the cools and the warms. But I'm going light to dark. Started off with our RG3, RG5, and then we'll bring in some RG6, and of course, blend everything out from there. I had the best time coloring up this little guy. The gnome style is just such a fun style, and I love how it doesn't have to be like garden, it's all of it. Here we have, Halloween. We've seen him for all the different holidays, and I'm here for it. I'm just saying, I'm here for it. He's so cute. And his little hands. It just makes me happy. I just had the best time coloring this. And I know what I'm making is a Halloween card, but I feel like for any of us that are maybe a little bit nerdy and love The Hobbit or love, anything fantasy type like that, this would be a lot of fun to make for one of your friends like that. So I'm already thinking of several people that I could send a card like this to, using him outside of the Halloween world. He's just adorable. All right. Trying to be dramatic with those darker colors and blending out where I can. But I feel like his robe looks pretty good. We're going to stick to those red grays for his gloves. And I'll bring in some RG7, or no, I guess I'm bringing in W7 for that. And then we'll blend that out with our red, but that really adds that darkness to it. And then our last little bit after we've colored our staff is to color the little magical piece around his head. But I'm just using browns for the staff. And then for the magical piece around him, after I've blended this out, we're going to use some very light yellows. I just thought that would go well. Considering what our background is, it's those greens. And it's so pretty. All right, so once we're done there, we're going to bring in the matching die. Now, my die is from the first released just to like the design teams and such. And so my die doesn't line up perfectly. The die you're going to get is, so don't worry about how mine looks. Yours will be fine if you do decide to get this one. I brought in that Simply Sentimental Halloween, and I decided to bring in some of those words, the have, a, and magical. And I stamped those out and cut that down. And then I'm bringing in the Halloween. So I do like how these Simply Sentimentals, you can get the stamp sets and be just fine with that, or get the dies and be just fine with that if you really wanted to. But I love having both of them because you can mix and match. And I love mixing and matching all of my Simply Sentimentals together. If you start putting those with other sets, you can really come up with some fun sentiments. So now we're going to bring our camera in a little bit closer, and then we will start using our reverse tweezers along with some liquid glue to attach down all of those little letters. And it can be a little bit tedious, I suppose, but this is where those reverse tweezers come in so super handy. Definitely want to have a pair of those in your stash of tools. It's one that I use very, very frequently, especially when piecing things down. And the older I get, the more helpful it is. And then we'll just finish up with our last few letters. But I love how that looks. Kind of wishing that I had gone back with some of those colors that I already used and maybe did an ombre on those white letters. I know, you're surprised. I always use ombre. I love the ombre look when you're talking about words. And then we'll finish up with our N. Now to attach everything down to the front of our card, which our card base does measure for, or it's 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches, scored at 4 1/4. We're going to attach down our panel, but to attach down the other pieces, I do want to use some adhesive foam strips. So I'm going to attach those to the back of the word Halloween and also to the back of our gnome. I'm going to leave Have a Magical without the foam because I want that to be right down on top of the word. We're going to kind of tuck it behind Halloween, just using our liquid glue. But I pulled off all of that release paper on the back of the word Halloween and also on our gnome, and then we can put that down on top. And now naturally, you know, I could not stop there. There's so many great embellishments in the Trinity Stamp store that I pulled out a couple. This brand new one, it's called Non-Toxic, and it's got so many really cute little clay bits in there, whether it be a cauldron or a little poison bottle. And then there's also just really pretty shimmery bits in there. And I'm going to grab in some of those, some of the greens, because they just go so well with that background. So you can sometimes look through your stash of some of those embellishments and you can, like, look, there's even stars in there. It's super fun. And I'm just going to attach those down using my pickup stick and some of that liquid glue. And then this is where I want to bring in that other one called Pineapple Twinkle, because it went really well also. And there are different sizes to that. So as you can tell, I've been very liberal with both of those embellishments. But once we're done with that, I should have done this next part first before I put all the embellishments on, but sometimes I just get going and I don't think about it. But I do want to stamp on the inside. So I'm going to bring in the Distress ink, which is not formulated for stamping, but since it's in the inside of the card, I'm not that worried about it. And we'll stamp our little wizard gnome on the inside using some of that evergreen bough. And then I'm going to use some of that scattered straw for our moon and for some stars. It's just a fun way to bring out in the outside, or the outside in. And then our sentiment, that comes from Hocus Pocus. I'm going to stamp that in there. No tricks, just treats. Using some VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. And then as a final bit, I bring in some glossy accents for that little bit of magic that he's whirling around his head. And then that is going to finish off our card for today. I love all the shimmer. It's such a great card. As far as like the color combo and just putting those elements in there together, I'm so happy with it. And I hope you like it too. If you do, please hit that like button. Definitely consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. And be sure to check out all that Trinity Stamps has going on over on their blog, Facebook page, and Instagram for more crafty inspiration. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you soon.